My name is John Lawson. I am the Township Assessor. I've been the assessor for approximately 18 years. And this is where you come for my office to appeal taxes. We help you doing comparables. My office actually does everything that an attorney can do for you. However, I don't ever say don't hire an attorney to appeal your taxes. So my recommendation is to make sure you appeal your taxes. So my office is upstairs on the second floor. I have a staff of 3. My chief deputy assessor, Victor, is right behind you with the camera taking pictures. Deputy assessor Joe College is right there in the back. And Deputy Assessor Kevin Snow. My staff's been with me for a long time. We're here for the residents. A little bit about, in case you don't know, I give you one test, right? Because I have 3 minutes of the floor, that's about it, right? Then we turn it over to the people that are putting everything on. How many people here live in either Schaumburg or Hoffman Estates? Vast majority, right? Does everybody know that, can anybody tell me how many villages are in the Township of Schaumburg? Schaumburg Township, how many villages? 5? 6? About 7. Okay? There are 7 municipalities in the township. So when people hear about township government, it's not the village of Schaumburg, it's not the village of Hoffman Estates, right? We're a township. There's 7 different municipalities. Can anybody even name all 7 of them? Okay, so we have Schaumburg, we have Hoffman Estates. Those are the 2 we know, right? Elk Grove, Roselle, Hanover Park, Rolling Meadows,
Halifax.
Springwood. Okay, so there are parts of every single one of those municipalities in Schaumburg Township. The village of Schaumburg is not all in Schaumburg Township. There's a part of the village of Schaumburg that belongs to Bloomingdale Township. So that's your lesson for today. Okay, but if you live in any of those towns in Schaumburg Township, you're in the right place. So 2 things that I always like to say. And you know what? I'm missing one person here. I totally apologize. We have one of our township trustees here. Where's Laura? Turn back there. Stand up. She's one of our newly elected township board members. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. So I always make it a point. I do one pitch. Okay, what you're seeing right here. I offer a service called Coffee with the Assessor. Coffee with the Assessor is I come to your house, I put on this seminar. Okay, the only thing that I ask is I ask for 7 people, neighbors, friends, as long as they live in the township. I ask you to have some Dunkin' Donuts coffee here for me, and we put this on in your living room. Okay, so if that's something you're interested in, go to my website. That's a service that we do, and I love doing it. One last thing is, I don't know if you know, but you can appeal 2 times a year. Actually, you can appeal more than that, but 2 times a year. The first time is with the Cook County Assessor. The second time is with the Cook County Board of Review. And that is who is here today is the Cook County Board of Review. Cook County Board of Review can override the Cook County Assessor. So I recommend always you do both of them. And then there's a couple other more appeals you can do through the courts or through the state. So. But you're not here to listen to me talk. I am going to introduce Kevin Morrison. He is our Cook County Commissioner for our district here, which has a heck of a lot more towns than I just told you. So, okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very grateful that we're able to come here together in person today. Tell you, it's been a long 2 years for all of us. But I'm Kevin Morrison. I'm the Cook County Commissioner of the 15th District. My map covers all of Schaumburg Township, and like he alluded to, I actually have 17 municipalities within my map, so a few more mayors to deal with. But Today, I'm glad that we're able to partner with our Township Assessor as well as with our Board of Review Commissioner. I hope that you get good information today, and I wish you well during this process. I'm elated to share with you that after passing our 2022 budget at Cook County, we have not raised any new taxes for the county, and we've kept our levy at bay now since 1994. And so I know that these presentations help inform our residents where some of those increases might be coming from, as well as making sure that you are getting an accurate assessment. And I've said for years now, you should not have to pay a penny more than is due. Now today, our Board of Review Commissioner is Tammy Wendt. Unfortunately, she's not able to be with us today, but today her Chief of Staff is going to be taking over, and I'm going to introduce him in a minute. But first, I want you to know, my district does cover all Schaumburg Township. If you have issues, reach out to my office at any time. I've got Ted Mason, my Chief of Staff, right in back. And we've got a table in back as well with information on how you can contact me directly. So without further ado, let's get the day rolling. And next up is Todd Thielman, the Chief of Staff to Commissioner Wendt. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. Commissioner Tammy Wendt does send her her condolences. Unfortunately, there's a COVID situation and she's in quarantine, so she's fine, but for a matter of safety, we thought she should stay away tonight. So appreciate you tonight. We did bring, I think, 9 staff analysts from the Board of Review from the 1st District, from Tammy. We're all part of Tammy's staff. We're going to have, you'll have an opportunity to engage with them after I give this presentation. It's about 20 minutes. We keep it kind of short because everyone has an individual story with their tax situation. This is from a high level, and then you can take your individual questions to our analysts here. So what is the Board of Review? The Board of Review is the agency that allows you to appeal your assessed value that was granted or placed on your property from the assessor, or the appellate court for you. If you appeal at the Board of Review, we will analyze your property. We'll either decide that you're fairly assessed, or we will grant a reduction of some sort. We don't increase your assessment. So there's a fear out there that if you appeal to the Board of Review that we would perhaps increase your assessment. We don't do that. As long as your property is not owned by an LLC or a corporation, you do not need to hire an attorney. As the assessor opined on, I wouldn't recommend hiring an attorney. I've done the analysis. Individual property owners have a greater success rate of a reduction to their appeal than those that hire attorneys. It's a small percentage, but we hold the attorneys to a higher degree of accuracy, where we give some latitude to individual homeowners that file appeals. We will we'll follow up with phone calls if we think there's mistakes made. If there's non-signatures, we'll follow up and give every opportunity to have the homeowner file a proper appeal, where attorneys, by default, we hold them to a higher degree of accuracy. So by all means, please file by yourself. The assessor's office can help. We can help. We'll get it. It's not as complicated as most people think. We can't proactively look at your property unless you ask us to. We just don't have the jurisdiction to do that. Quite frankly, we don't have the bandwidth. There's 1.9, almost 2 million pieces of property in Cook County. So you need to ask us to take a look at your appeal. Last year we looked at 253,000 appeals. So that's quite a bit, but those are appeals that were proactively asked for. Potential benefits of appeals are obviously reductions, and those reductions could lead to multi-year savings. The North Tri happened a couple years ago, and those values should stick through the whole assessment period. But we're going to do, or the assessor is going to do a reassessment of the North Tri in 2022. So, for example, if you file appeal this year, it's only going to apply for this year and next year, and then it's over. There is no fee to file ever at the Board of Review. If anyone charges you, there's something wrong. So right now, the assessor is valuing the properties in the city of Chicago. So all the City of Chicago properties are being reevaluated this year. And that will, eventually we'll take those in our jurisdiction as appeals come in. We'll take a look at them and we'll make decisions on those. And if we do reduce one of these Chicago tries, it'll be good for 3 years. Now you can appeal every year. So if you do get a reduction in any year, if you do nothing, that reduction is going to stay for that try. But it doesn't mean you can't appeal again the following year because things change. Things change in the neighborhood, the value of property goes up and down. So you're always available to file appeal every year. And as the assessor said, you can file at the assessor level, Cook County assessor level, or the Board of Review, or both. You do not need to file at the Cook County assessor to file at the Board of Review. So if you fail to meet the deadline or you miss the assessor's deadline, know that you can still file at the Board of Review. The assessor does what's called a mass appraisal system, so they look at everything in large areas and they make some generalizations, and that's where some of the mistakes happen. Where if you file at the Board of Review, we do a micro-analysis of your individual property. Nobody knows your property like you as the homeowner. You know what's going on in your neighborhood, you know the heartbeat of the neighborhood. So if you think your property is overassessed, by all means let us know. The assessor, the program that they use does make mistakes, it does make certain assumptions. So there is grounds all the time for reductions in value of the assessment. So this is the assessment calendar. Basically you can see Cook County is divided in 3 sections: the city, the suburban north, and the suburban south. As you see, you're in the suburban north. So you're due to be reassessed in 2022, and then again in 2025. And a lot of people don't realize that the city of Chicago is still divided in townships, and so those are the townships of Chicago. So what are the grounds for an appeal? There's mainly four grounds for an appeal. The most common is uniformity. That is my house assessed the same as other houses in my neighborhood? So you have to compare the type of the house, the age of the house, the size of the house. They're put in different classifications. So if you're looking to run comparables, you have to make sure you're measuring oranges to oranges and apples to apples. If there's a recent purchase of a property that's within the last 3 years, you can use that for grounds for appeal. Now it's a pretty hot residential property market right now, so I imagine if you bought your property a few years ago, it's probably worth more now. If you bought it recently, it could still be worth more. So that's probably going to be a ground of appeal that we don't see too much right now for the next couple of years with this hot market. Factual error, and this happens every so often. You'll have a square footage error. Sometimes it's a fat finger error of whoever put the characteristics in the property in the past. Sometimes it has to do with changes when people remodel or renovate or add additions. The right square footage may not have been calculated. So if there's an error in square footage, we want to point that out. Now, the Board of Review doesn't make characteristic changes to properties. So if it is a factual error, we can usually, if the evidence is there, we can grant relief for 1 year only, and then we would ask you to take that factual evidence to the assessor and make them change the real property characteristic records. They're the ones that control that part of it. And then the last one is vacancy. So this is something that was out of your control, an act of God, fire, tornado, water damage, things like that force you to leave your property. We could give relief based on the amount of time that you're out of your property. There's a different level of evidence that has to be presented. I'll go over a little bit of that. But it's there, and it happens, it's real. I mean, we have staff members it's happened to, so it's there. So what to include to support your appeal? Comparable properties are what your township assessor can help you with if it's a daunting task and you don't necessarily want to take it. You come to the assessor's office, they'll help you find comparables to send in with your appeal. If you think your property is overassessed, we're not requiring you to submit comparables. They help us, they're helpful to us, but we do have a comparable system that we would look at properties. And tonight, if you fill out one of these paper appeal forms, you're not submitting any comparables with it. We are going to do the comparable analysis. You would have an opportunity to submit comparables if you wanted, but we have the program to do it. So if there's comparable sales, this one takes a little care. Comparable sales are something that we don't always have good access to. So if you see comparable sales in your neighborhood and you can document those for us and bring those to us with your appeal, that's a really good evidence to bring to us, because the clerk's office, there's a delay in getting sales recorded and things like that. So if there's sales in your neighborhood and they're close to you and the houses are like your houses, we want to see those comparable sales. So by all means, send those in. And then again, getting back to the vacancy part, we would need fire reports, police reports, dated pictures, and don't get hung up on the dated pictures. If you just write the date on your photo, that's good enough for us. If there's building permits issued, occupancy permits issued, those things will all help your case for a vacancy appeal. In addition to filing paper complaint forms like you're all doing here today, you have the option of filing online. We have an online appeal process. It's a little older. I wish it was a little more functionally and more user-friendly, but it gets the job done. So if you go to our website, boardofreview.com, and you hit the orange button up in the top right, Submit Appeal, it'll take you into our portal. Whereas you're going to get a chance to register. And the benefits of registering are this. So if you register with your email, you're going to get correspondence from us along the way. As townships open and townships close, we'll let you know. As if decisions are rendered on your appeal, we'll let you know, we'll send you an email. Now, we're not going to tell you what the decision is. You need to log into your account, and that'll keep your history too. So I highly recommend registering. It's really helped the process. We do not sell your information to anybody. We do not communicate the information with any other county agency, in fact. So we only use it internally. If you don't have access to a computer and you just want to call and register, we also have our general number, 312-603-5542. You can call, and one of the folks at the desk will help you register. And you can register at any time. It's open year-round, so you don't have to worry about, people say, oh, the board review is closed right now. Our registration, our website is operational year-round. And then once you register, you can do what's called pre-file. If your township is closed, you can pre-file, and I'll go into that in a little bit. So once you hit that orange button, Submit Appeal, you come to this screen, and this is where you log in or register. If you log in, obviously you've already created an account in the past. If you need to register, you hit the same button. It'll take you to this screen where you log in or you create a new registration. And a lot of people forget their username and password. You can also call that same number and we can refresh your password. We don't have an online password refresh system. You need to call this number to get it taken care of. So when you come in and you want to create a new user, there's also an option to file as a guest. I wouldn't suggest filing as a guest. The line of communication is not constant. You lose some of the advantages of registering. So even though you can register as a guest, it's not in your best interest. In fact, even if you register as a guest, we still ask for your email twice, but then we don't send information out. So there's really no advantage to register as a guest. It doesn't protect you from your identity or anything like that. You have to submit an email to file even as a guest. So there's no advantage. After you logged in or created your account, you'll come to a screen where you can submit appeal. And then it'll bring you to this screen right here. So what you want to do is there's a drop down here where it says what's the reason for your appeal. The drop down only has one option, so it's your property was over-assessed. And then you want to put in your PIN, your property index number, which is, you guys can find it on your property tax bill. Usually in your closing statements, you can find your PIN. If you want to do a search on the county website, you can find your PIN by address. I'll show you how to do that in a second too. And then if you're not an attorney, just click the box you're not an attorney, and then click the I'm not a robot box, okay? Pretty simple. We're 90% done already. Once you get to this screen, this is add associated pin. So what an associated pin is, if your property has 2 pins, if your house straddles 2 parcels, and you'll know if you have 2 pins, you'll get 2 tax bills all the time. Each pin is separated by a tax bill. So this doesn't pertain to most people. Most homeowners only have 1 pin. When they built the subdivision, they did it correctly. These are usually different situations, and when there's been some sprawl going on. So you do not need to put anything in this box. You can just hit submit, and that will take you to this last final screen here. And this is where you're going to put in your name, your address, your, I think, email twice on here, and then you're going to hit done. So that's, you pre-filed by doing that. You already pre-filed. So with Schaumburg not being open right now, you can go home and do that. It's the same thing as handing in one of the paper complaint forms today, though. We're going to do it. There was no evidence submitted when you did it like this because you submitted on a pre-filed situation. Just like on these paper forms, there's no evidence submitted tonight. But if you change your mind, if you decide, oh, you know what, I forgot I had this happen, or I know these things are going on in my neighborhood, you can call and have any evidence added to your file up until the evidence submission deadline, which is approximately going to be 45 days after Schaumburg Township opens. So still plenty of time, and then the million-dollar question is, when Schaumburg Township going to open? We don't know. We're still waiting for the assessor. They kind of dictate our schedule, and they haven't released their assessment rules for Schaumburg Township yet. So we only have 4 townships open right now, and we hope to get the bulk of the next townships in the next 8 weeks probably. So hopefully Schaumburg will be one of those towns. This is an example of your second property tax bill. The second property tax bill is important because your first property tax bill is only 55% of your previous year's taxes, but your second property tax bill is what shows you your exemptions, what shows you your tax rate, the state multiplier, and all the different taxing bodies that are in your district that you're supporting. Like everybody, it's likely weighted heavily on the school districts, so that's where all your tax dollars are going. Now remember, the Board of Review and the Assessor, we don't decide how much you pay. That's your taxing districts. Our only job is to figure out what your house is worth, okay? So the taxing districts, we create the pie, and then the taxing districts decide how much money they need, and we divvy up that by the pie. If you do want to get crazy and go looking for comparables or just kind of looking at your neighborhood, there's a great tool called Cook County Viewer. It's at cookcountywiewer.com, and this is it's run by like a Google type program where you look from an aerial view, a satellite view, and you can hone in on the different pins. You could look at property values of all your neighbors. Now remember, property tax information is all public information. We all can look up everybody in this room's tax bill for the last 10 years. We can see what the exemptions they claim, everything. I mean, that's all public information. So Cook County Viewer is a good tool that our analysts use this too, to look at different areas, to find properties that are comparable and just have a bird's eye view of a neighborhood. Also, the Assessor has a comparable tool at cookcountyassessor.com. It's in the lower right-hand corner there in the drop-down menu, so you can use their comparable program as well. And then Assessor Lawson here will have a program that he can help you with if you want to come in and you make an appointment. If by chance you didn't want to do anything electronically and you wanted another paper form, you can go to our website, cookcountyboardofreview.com. Go to our forms tab, and you can print out a complaint form. You can mail it in. If you go home and you're talking to your neighbor or your relatives, and you explain to them how easy it is, you can go print out a form if you want, or direct them to our website to register and submit an appeal. This is what the appeal form looks like, and most of you are probably familiar with this today. Most important thing in here is your name, your address, your PIN, and your signature. We need your signature to give us the jurisdiction, so don't hand in a form today without signing it. The lower part of it is for attorneys only, you can disregard. The part all the way to the right is, again, if you had associated pins only, so if you had more than one pin on your property. So do not put comparables over here. A lot of people put comparables. You don't need to do that. We won't throw your appeal in the trash if you do it. Again, that's the ability that we give homeowners some latitude. But if you're an attorney and you did that, we look cross-eyed at you. Condo appeals. So we have a condo analyst here. If anyone has a condo or a townhouse question, we have a couple of our analysts here that specialize in condos and townhouses. They're a little different kind of animal. They require a different kind of analysis. So you can stick around, and I'm not going to go over into the details of it, but just let you know if you have some questions on that, we have professionals here to help you. I'm going to run through a couple of these. So appeal guidelines. Anyone that files an appeal to the Board of Review is entitled to a hearing. It's the law. You can have a hearing if you want. For most homeowners, if there's nothing particular about their property, if there's nothing they have to really point out that they feel they've had bad luck on in the past with appeals, you probably don't need a hearing. But you can get one. You can only represent yourself at a hearing though, unless you hire an attorney. But you can't have a friend or a family or a cousin or anything like that come represent you at the hearing. You need to be there yourself. Again, you have to file an appeal to give us the jurisdiction to look at your property. You have to use an official Board of Review complaint form or file online. And if you fail to ask for a hearing when you initially file your complaint, it's one of those things you can get. You can call us up or send us an email and ask to have a hearing. We can change it up until, again, we close your township. So by all means, if you change your mind, if something happens, let us know. How do we reach our decision? So last year I said we had 253,000 appeals that came in. So those get randomized. We have 3 districts within the Board of Review. District 1, 2, and 3. Commissioner Wendt is in District 1, which has about, I think, 8 townships, 8 of the suburban townships, and part of the Chicago township now. So we have a program that will randomize all these appeals that come in. So all the appeals that we get tonight, we'll feed them into the system, we'll let people input them, and they're going to be randomized between the 3 districts. So District 1 doesn't just hear District 1 appeals. And that's for fairness and transparency. So we don't know whose appeals we're going to get. So if for example, we get your appeal, and it gets randomized to 1st District staff, one of our analysts will pull it out of a queue and look at it and run the analysis. They'll make a decision based on the evidence, and they'll hit done. And it's going to go then in a rotation to one of the other commissioner's staffs. That second staff member has to look at that first staff analysis, and they're either going to agree or disagree with them. If they disagree, they create their own evidence. It gets submitted in the file as well. So now we have 2 conflicting pieces of evidence or 2 conflicting decisions. And then it'll go to the 3rd district in the rotation, and that third analyst is going to have to make a decision. Do I think the first analyst did the best analysis? Do I think the second analyst did a better analysis? Or do I think they're both crazy and I have this? If that happens, all 3 of those analysts will get together and talk through it. One of them is going to be right, just a matter of talking through it. But what happens most of the time is the first analyst will do a good job, a great job. Especially if they're our district. And then the second analyst will take a look at it. Likely they'll agree. And it's a majority vote. So as long as 2 of the analysts agree, it's a done deal. The third one it doesn't matter if the first 2 already agreed or the first 2 don't. The first 2 agree it's a reduction, or the first 2 agree that it's a no change. The third analyst doesn't necessarily have any weight. But not to say that they don't do an analysis, because that becomes evidence too. And we encourage even on what we call third cuts, if you see something wrong, especially because you're a check and balance too, there could be errors. Nobody's perfect. So they do check it. They don't have to agree or disagree, but as long as they don't find an error, they're going to move on, and that file is going to be completed. So what are some of the most common errors? Not filling out the form properly, putting the wrong pins in, not signing the form, failing to include evidence in the example of a vacancy. You can include a police report, but then you forget to give us pictures and police report or building permits and things like that. And we can't do anything with that. Likely we'll be in contact with you, let you know that, hey, we're missing something here. You know, what do you have? Can you fill us in? Give us the rest of the information. Again, we're gonna work to help you do this. We're here to help you. Remember, you pay our salaries, so we're here to help you with the appeal process. So we're always going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Happens sometimes more than we probably care to admit, where there's multiple appeals on the same property from different entities. Meaning, you know, you'll get the postcard from Turk, and you'll say, yeah, file my appeal, and then you decide you want to do it yourself, and it causes some clashing within our systems. We're always going to default to the homeowner over anything else. So if you hired an attorney, you hired, you know, one of these consulting groups, and then you filed yourself, we're going to go with yours, and we're going to kick everyone else out. We're going to let them know what happened, but we're going to kick them out and let you do it. We've touched on this briefly. Finally, that the assessor is an option. The assessor has closed all townships for this year, so that ship is sailed for this year. But it's something you can do in the future, and particularly when you get reassessment notices in 2022. That's going to be your first battle, is with the assessor. Now, your success rate may not be as good at the assessor, because remember, these are their values. So you're going to have a pretty compelling case to have them change their own values, right? But by all means, you can do it. And again, the assessor is free. You do not need to be an attorney to file at the assessor. You can use a consultant at the assessor. They allow consultants there where the Board of Review doesn't. And again, you can file online at the assessor. They have a pretty nice program to do it as well. I touched on this a second ago. The second property tax bill is the property tax bill that has your exemptions. Now, exemptions are all granted by the assessor. I only included it in our slideshow just because I thought it was a good compilation of all the different exemptions. Most common is homeowner exemption. Second most common is probably the senior exemption. And then you get into the senior freeze and some of the other lesser utilized exemptions. But they should all be on your tax bill. I was helping a gentleman in Berwyn on Tuesday, 70-year-old gentleman on Social Security that was not receiving the senior exemption, was not receiving the senior freeze exemption, and so I convinced him to set up create an appointment at the assessor's office to get that taken care of. And you can go back for 3 years if there's errors on your taxes. You get what's called a certificate of error. The assessor will issue them. They'll come to the Board of Review, we'll approve them, and then they'll go back and they'll give you credit. Either the treasurer will cut you a check, or your tax bill will be reduced by the amount. So those are called certificates of errors. We can't answer a lot of questions about the exemptions. We just point you in the right direction because, again, this is out of our jurisdiction. So I'm going to leave you with this. Filing the Board of Review is free. It won't raise your assessed values. There's really no reason to not appeal unless you ask yourself this question. Is the fair market value of my house, let me rephrase that differently. Can I sell my house for, what can I sell my house for compared to what the fair market value is on my tax bill or what the assessor placed on my house? It's a pretty hot market right now. I imagine a lot of the homes up here in the north suburbs are probably underassessed if you look at what's going on in the sales. So I was speaking earlier to one of the audience members here, worried about the 2022 reassessment because of what's going on with the sales, the hot residential market. The assessor is going to do what's called a sales ratio study. It's not based on 1 year's sales, so it should level out some craziness that's happening, hopefully, for all our sakes. But remember, if everybody's assessed value is raised by 10%, and the taxing districts don't ask for any more money, your tax bill is going to be the exact same. So it's not really the value, or the assessed value, if it's even for everybody. What's driving your tax bill is the levies from local governments. So that's what we need to be careful of is with a high inflation rate, there's going to be school districts and fire districts and library districts, they're going to require more funds to run. So if your assessed value stays the exact same, and the taxing bodies raise their levies, your tax bill is going to go up. In fact, your assessed value can go down and your tax bill still goes up. So it's not always a one-for-one correlation with your assessed value. Any of our work is usually reflected in your second, or it's going to be reflected in your second installment tax bill. That's when we send it to the clerk, it goes off to the treasurer in the Illinois Department of Revenue, they make their multiplier, and then the second tax bills are generated. Just a word of caution, the second installment tax bill for 2022 is likely going to come out in December, maybe January. They're going to be extremely late next year. That has to do with some programming issues at the assessor. You know, we'll throw COVID in there for part of the reason. It's always a good scapegoat these days. But they're going to be a little late. Now, for property owners, that's great. You know, I get to hold on my money for a little longer. But what's going to happen is your taxing districts are going to have to go out and borrow money, especially if they have tight budgets. So school districts are going to have to go out and borrow money. They're called tax anticipation warrants. The lenders will lend money in anticipation of the tax money coming in. They know the tax money is always going to come in. So it's a great vehicle for banks and lending institutions. They make a lot of money on it with very low risk. So I would implore you to talk to your electeds about, hey, what can we do to get the Board of Review to do their job faster, to get it faster? So Commissioner Tammy Wendt is engaging other members of the officials in Cook County to try to see what we can do to cut off some of the time, because it's estimated that it costs taxing districts approximately $5 million a month to borrow money. So if we're 2 months late, that's $10 million in Cook County. That's not a lot overall, but that's $10 million that goes to bankers and lenders where it should go to the taxing districts. You know, we need to watch our budgets very carefully, and it'd be a bad thing if we're that late. So this is our contact information. We're all over Twitter, TikTok, anything, maybe not TikTok, but we're not on Insta yet either, but we're going to get there, and Snap's one too, I think. And you can take a picture of that if you want. And the phone number is our general switchboard. All right. So password reset. This is the catch-all for everything. And this is our main information, or our email address. If you want to get a hold of our staff directly, you can use this email address. That really concludes my presentation. And thank you, Assessor Lawson, for having us tonight. And Commissioner Morrison, if you're still around, thank you. Oh, one last thing. We got a cool new text thing. If you text BOR to 74121, that's BOR 74121, we'll communicate to you important dates, just general board review information that comes out as we learn it, as townships open. We'll push that out to everybody. Thank you.